Chapter 1. The Scope of Chivalric Humanism. One of the defining characteristics of humans as a species is that many individuals specialize in developing certain talents that enable survival. In the early days of humankind, men and women divided tasks based on gender roles, assigning important tasks to those of a gender whose biological characteristics were best suited for those tasks, such as men for hunting and warfare, and women for cooking and child-rearing. Yet there also existed people who specialized in developing the powers of their imagination to invent new technologies, which were taught to other people and allowed humans to enhance our physical characteristics to achieve more work with less time, energy, and resources spent compared to before these new technologies were created. Now, in the age that I live, as a species, the vast majority of humans develop talent in learning to use these technologies effectively to survive in the civilizations we've created. Most humans no longer hunt, and many humans do not even cook their own food. We have enhanced human survival with our technology to the degree that survival rates are high for the majority of all humans, and most people can live a long life if they simply become proficient at some talent which allows them to earn an income to purchase the resources for survival, such as pre-cooked food, pre-built shelters, and clean running water, and so on. Many of the survival tasks that our ancient ancestors found laborious have been made simple due to the current state of technological development that humanity has acquired by my lifetime. The act of surviving as a human is not very challenging anymore, unless a person specifically rejects all of the technology humans have collectively developed over thousands of years to make our survival simple. Despite the ease at which survival can be ensured for the majority, in many ways humans have created new problems to distract ourselves with, or perhaps that we can now concern ourselves with, because in most parts of the world we have acquired easy access to shelter, food, water, medicine, and security due to the technologies we have built. Now that excellent answers to our key survival problems have been solved by prior generations, many humans have decided to focus on trying to solve problems of social relationships between groups of humans. This has introduced many new ideologies of political and social theories, some of which are metaphysical in nature, and others rooted in science or pseudoscience, such as in the case of many sociological fields that are prominent in my present time. Most of these new ideologies, however, in my view, are but different forms of hedonism. Even with all of our technology, which includes our culture, it still remains that many people discover new challenges to struggle against. Throughout the course of my life, I have met many people who struggled to navigate their own path in their lives, as the structure of the societies we live in today are now very complicated. In my opinion, those I have met who struggled the most are the ones who were so concerned with themselves that they felt helpless to do anything about the social problems facing others. This is because they had no roadmap on how to improve their own lot, let alone one that can do the same for strangers. To solve this problem, I set about creating such a roadmap, which is this book. My conclusion from all of the many adventures I've had over the course of my life is that developing a person's talents, their potential, is what leads to the individual possessing the best life for themselves. This is for many reasons, the most important of which is that if a person has a talent that has great value for other people, then that individual is accepted and embraced by others as a desired member of society. This leads to the individual's prosperity and having a useful trade that allows the individual to acquire resources. Yes, but the cultivation of talents also has an impact on an individual's gene expression. Indeed, talent is a biological consequence of gene expression that has been harnessed by the individual to produce a skill that we humans label as a talent in our languages. So it is that by cultivating talents, an individual human can obtain their potential as a member of our species and potentially activate new useful gene expressions and mutations in themselves. They can pass on to future generations of humans they sire. This is done while the individual also contributes productively to their societies in a way that can benefit others. When this potential is accomplished successfully, the individual increases their survivability, enhances their chances for finding a good mate to procreate with, and ultimately as a person is best able to achieve the goals they wish to accomplish during the course of their lives. The form that a talent takes is unimportant, insofar as that a talent can manifest itself in many ways. What is important is that a person be good at this talent, and that this talent has value for others. For humans as a species are defined by our cooperation with one another. Our capacity for tool use is shaped by how diverse the talents individual humans develop that better utilize the tools we create. Most everything we as humans view as culture and technology are in fact a tool humans have created that provides some useful value toward our survival. This is even true for things meant for leisure, because leisure is a necessary activity for a human to be able to rest. The history of humanity has demonstrated that diverse aptitudes are useful to our survival, sometimes in unexpected ways. It is the goal of chivalric humanism to rehabilitate the individual's moral character so that he or she may reach his or her full potential. It is the cultivation of human potential which grants a person more joy, more reality, more connectedness, more accomplishment, and more opportunities for other people to grow. Furthermore, it is my design that chivalric humanism encourages the individual to come to an intimate understanding of reality and truth through direct experience. It is a philosophy of personal development where the individual works to understand their true nature and the laws of the universe that govern the world. It tends to be that human communities reward those who contribute greatly to the community. If an individual becomes more intelligent, more valuable, and more skilled, that individual can add greater value to their community and thereby obtain a higher quality of life as a reward. In this way, the goals of chivalric humanism help the individual develop a purpose-driven life that adds positive dimensions to their existence as well as to others' lives. I call my moral framework chivalric humanism because it is a form of humanism that uses the time-proven concept of moral virtues to define the boundaries of human morality. Historically, chivalry was a code of behavior for the medieval European institution of knighthood, which emphasized a number of moral principles with the goal of civilizing an otherwise brutal warrior caste, encouraging them to act honorably and act in the best interests of the realm they served. The origins of chivalry descend from the beliefs of crusader military orders, such as the Knights Hospitaller, whose origins lay in operating hospitals and providing safe haven and protection to traveling pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem, who were often the target for bandits. So great was the desire to protect the weak that even in battle against bandits, Hospitallers were known to give up the tactical advantage of their horses to rescue injured travelers by placing them upon their horses to send them away to safety, while the knights remained to fight on foot. The Hospitallers also provided food banks and alimony for the poor, especially for widowed mothers and the elderly, and they also operated orphanages for children who had lost their parents in bandit attacks, to disease, or had been otherwise abandoned. The orphanages provided an education for the children so that they would be able to make a life for themselves in the city, or even join the order themselves. The charitable actions and noble ideals of the Hospitallers would inspire other knightly orders and influence the concept of chivalry itself, and partly as a tribute to these progenitors of chivalry, the symbol for chivalric humanism I have designed uses a Maltese cross, which is one of the insignia of the Hospitallers. Each arm of the four arms of the Maltese cross represents a key positive principle of the philosophy, and the 8 points of the arms represent virtues. The smaller silver arms inside each golden arm represent the 4 negative principles and 8 faults that shadow the positive principles and 8 virtues. The positive principles, virtues, negative principles, and flaws are discussed in detail in Book 2, Ethics, Chapter 3. The humans who sought to live a life rooted in chivalry believed in yet chivalry is not entirely unique to Europe. Throughout history, there have been ethic codes similar to chivalry, such as the Japanese Bushido and the Chinese Xia. What I have sought to do is create a new kind of chivalry for the modern age which promotes the sense of civic duty I believe is greatly lacking in other varieties of humanism. It is through the purpose of civic duty that old and new chivalry can be linked together. Civic duty is necessary for an individual to develop useful talents, because if you believe you have a duty to contribute to your community, then you will organically develop useful aptitudes so that you can contribute meaningfully to your community. This is why virtue is essential for a moral framework, for virtue ensures the development of useful talents. Hedonism, by contrast, does not specifically encourage behavior that leads to the cultivation of useful talents. In my experience, hedonistic ideologies tend to lead a person away from anything that is viewed unpleasurable, and because the road to obtaining a high degree of aptitude is often challenging, hedonistic people often avoid acquiring their full potential in order to maximize short-term pleasures instead. A person who abandons a difficult task or challenge because it ceases to be fun cannot acquire their full potential in a talent, and so may not develop a talent to the degree it is now useful. It is my belief that advocating for people to live a life rooted in virtue is the best way to push back against the current trend of hedonism that is guiding many people into lifestyles that ultimately result in misery and depression when the weight of the consequences of their choices catches up to them. I will explain in greater detail more about my thoughts on the drawbacks of hedonism in later sections of this book. The ideals of ancient chivalry and my new chivalry are also linked together through me by provenance. From the time that I was a small boy, I was raised with the belief that I descend from the line of Charles Martel, Carolus Martellus, progenitor of the Carolingian line of Frankish kings. Though not a king by title, it is Charles Martel who established the feudal system and social class of warriors that became knights. Arguably, Charles Martel is the first and original king of knights. I've spent a tidy sum of money to ascertain the truth of this family legend through ancestral records research and genetic testing, and to date I have been able to verify that I possess genetic markers identical to those found in the graves of Frankish nobles, so I can prove that I descend at least from those who were the earliest knights. Regardless of the truth of the story, the fact is that I have inherited the legacy of believing that I am a descendant of the man who can best be regarded as the king of knights. That belief in and of itself carried with it a responsibility which I embraced as a young child and strived to live in a way to live up to that legacy. Chivalric humanism would not exist without this story to serve as a torch handed down through the generations unto me, and so old and new chivalry of my design is connected through this family tie, through me. I am the originator of chivalric humanism, but I am still a human. As an individual, I am admittedly a product of my own flawed society, who is limited by the current intellectual capacity that humanity possesses during this age I live. Consequently, I feel unable to create solutions to the whole host of human problems, and objectively, I know that creating genuine solutions to all these problems is beyond my individual capacity. So I have decided to focus on solving one problem: the lack of unity in our species and how this shortage is holding back human progress by preventing people from reaching their full potential. To create a united world where humans are no longer divided by racism and other self-destructive delusions is what I decided I might be able to achieve through this book. And it is my hope that once such a world is created, that members of this better future society, who I assume will have greater intellectual gifts than myself, will be able to unravel the rest of those unhelpful mechanisms that plague humankind. I believe our lack of unity is largely a result of most humans clinging to beliefs about themselves, others in the world that are objectively false. The goal then is to show people how to use logic and reason to untangle the web of delusions that limit their ability to see the world clearly. Unity should then be possible if enough living individuals possess the ability to separate fact from fiction and make objectively sound decisions toward accomplishing the goals they wish to obtain.